Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited for my conversation today with Vatrice Chestnut. She is the publisher of East Potomac River Living magazine, and it's distributed in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C. She has more than 30 years of publishing experience and works diligently to help local businesses build their brands with the most affluent homeowners. Vatrice can also help brands grow in more than 1,100 markets in the U.S. and Canada within her publishing network. Welcome to the show today, Vatrice.
Thank you so much for having me, Felina. It is a pleasure to be here. I can't wait for us to have this discussion. I've been looking forward to it.
Me too. I'm excited to share your story. You have quite a journey that you have been on. So let's start at the beginning. I know you were raised in Birmingham, Alabama. So where did you go from there? Talk to us a bit about some of those early choices you made in college and your career path.
Okay. I'm the oldest of four, raised in Birmingham, Alabama. I chose to attend college at first the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And that didn't work out. 6 weeks there. And I was like, this is not for me. And so
6 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. I would say the culture, I started out in mechanical engineering and I said, oh no, I don't like this at all. So I backtracked to a scholarship that I had been offered as a senior in high school. And I ended up attending the University of Montevallo, which is a couple of miles south of Birmingham. And there I majored in communications and I actually loved all aspects of communications, PR, advertising, radio and television. I adored every bit of it. And that's where I found what we call today my jam.
I love that. I love it. And it looks like here along that path, you ended up transferring schools.
I did. I fell in love and got married. And I was married to a soldier, and he was in 82nd Airborne Division. So we relocated to the Fayetteville, North Carolina area. And that's where I continued in a degree in communications from Methodist University.
Awesome. I love it. So what was your first job out of college?
My first job out of college was working for Fayetteville Publishing Company. And I was offered that position right before I graduated, probably about 4 months before I graduated. And I was working in the circulation department of the local newspaper. And we handled advertising as well as distribution, which circulation is. And I managed a team of, I think, 9 or 10 employees. That was my first job.
Wow, that's a big job coming right out of school. That's amazing.
It was. And actually, I was recruited by a previous graduate of Methodist University. So I was fortunate enough to go right into my career, aligned with my major, which a lot of people, don't get afforded that opportunity, but I had it.
Yeah. And you have, honestly, Vatrice, the most, I don't want to say straight and narrow because that doesn't sound right, but I mean, you are a veteran in this industry. I mean, you worked for USA Today, you worked in advertising production manager. I mean, you have you really know this industry. Talk about some of the other stops along the way as you grew in your career.
Yeah, so after leaving Fayetteville Publishing, I ended up working in advertising for Birmingham News, which was another local newspaper, but larger size. And I worked in the advertising department there. And then from there, I later started with Southern Living Magazine, and worked with them. I worked with USA Today, the Chronicle of Higher Education. So once I started with the Chronicle of Higher Education, I took on more of a production role and editorial role. So prior to that, it was mostly advertising, design, and production. So with the Chronicle, I took on more of an editorial role, and the editor-in-chief basically took me under his wings when he saw I was thirsty, and he just groomed me. And from there, I started doing more writing and really getting into the entire piece of the pie when it comes to publishing. So I have a love for writing just as much as I have a love for design and advertising. And I have a good understanding of what works and what doesn't in different niche industries.
Awesome. And I know you started a side hustle back in 2004, which you just recently made your full-time hustle. Talk about that.
Yes. So interestingly enough, I went back to Birmingham for about 5 years. My dad had some health issues, and my mom and dad needed help with certain things. So I went back for family reasons. And I started looking for jobs, and I didn't like the salaries that they were offering and the benefits. And I was sitting and I talked to my dad and I said, Dad, I don't like what they're offering me because I have a wealth of, experience. I'm not starting out. So he says, well, it sounds like you may need to think about a business. And so I took 5 days and I thought about a business, and I just started. And within, I would say it wasn't even a month, I had my first client, and I was doing graphic design and layout services for a local magazine under my own business. So I just hit awesome. The grammar.
I love it. It sounds like you should become an entrepreneur. And you're like, all right, let's do it. Awesome.
Exactly.
That is fantastic. And so I know you've been doing work on the side, throughout this period of time. Anything else along your career path? And we'll obviously get to what you're focused on now and your full-time hustle as an entrepreneur, but any other stops along the way that were particularly meaningful for you or had an impact on you?
Most definitely. With the .com crash, I lost most of my clients, all but one. So that sent me back into the workforce in corporate America. So I returned to the Washington, D.C. area and started working with Failed Entertainment as the art manager for consumer products. So, when you go and you take your kids to Ringling Brothers or Monster Jam and all of those toys and takeaways that they want to take as children, I was the art manager for that department, creating those products and things like that. So that was interesting. And then I had an opportunity to just fall in my lap with a nonprofit agency called, at the time it was called Niche, now it's called Source America. But with them, I had an opportunity to become a publications manager and to lead their flagship publication design and production, as well as editorial, and their regional newsletter, which had 7 different versions. So with that opportunity, I had amazing growth. I loved working there. And I found a new love for nonprofits or mission-driven organizations. And from there, I, really was able to develop more skills and understand stakeholders and audiences and creating specialized publishing geared towards each one of those audiences. So that was an amazing opportunity for me. And from there, I went on to actually work for a faith-based organization and directed their marketing and communications. It was for, I would say, a mid to large size organization. And I worked there for a number of years, and really got more involved in not just printed pieces, but more in the radio and TV aspect of it, as well as book publishing. So I learned a lot during that position and that role. And that led me to working with a trade association, which was my last place of employment. And there I worked to produce publications and really help the team streamline workflows and processes. So I adored that too, because I was able to shop software technology and other tools to help our team work more efficiently.
That's awesome. Awesome. So what was the jump in 2020? I mean, I feel like so much happened in 2020, right? Like
it did.
Up in the air, right? But what was the final push for you to say, okay, I'm back to entrepreneurship full time?
It actually was a push instead of a jump. Because of COVID, a lot of companies during that time had to downsize. So I lost my job due to downsizing because of the pandemic. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do this again full time, and I'm going to look back. I'm going to take everything I've learned along the way and use it to help other entrepreneurs, federal agencies, as well as local DC agencies. So that's how I developed and really came full force to where I am today with Affinity Media Consulting.
Awesome. I'm right there with you, girl. I got pushed three times. It was the third time. We're like, okay. And it's so ironic because, I also had a conversation with my father. He's been an entrepreneur his entire life, never worked a day for anybody else. And, it was kind of like, well, it's about time. It was sort of the conversation we had. So you do so much with your current company, Affinity Media Consulting. Obviously, the world of publishing, design, printing, marketing communications, websites, marketing funnels. You have so much experience to bring. Talk about some of the things you're working on now in your business, some of the things you're excited about.
Well, I try to bucket everything into 3 buckets, basically, so it's easier for everyone to digest. So we work with, in 3 areas: coaching, design, and publishing. So our coaching services help creative entrepreneurs build strong brands to position them at the forefront of the marketplace so they can attract dream clients. So I meet with students through a hybrid approach. There's an online training portal with all of the training videos, worksheets, and things like that. And then twice a week, we meet for them to help get clarity and to get input from me specifically about challenges or things that they totally didn't understand in the training piece of it. Secondly, as your magazine publisher, as you mentioned, I help local businesses build their brands with influential homeowners. And we use a 2-touch campaign, which is print and digital, to make it possible to bring the residents and the local businesses together. And lastly, I serve as a brand agency partner. My team and we produce creative deliverables to support brands and help them save time and money. And we basically focus on federal and DC agencies, but we found ourselves doing more work in the nonprofits more more than ever. I don't know where this boom came from, but all of a sudden we've been contacted by a lot of mission-driven companies to help them. And so we work with them on website development, creating their brand, creating messaging, and also creating deliverables for their brands.
Fantastic. What an interesting year within publishing and reaching homeowners, right? Especially with everything that has gone kind of crazy with COVID and people remodeling and really getting into home projects and things of that nature. Did you see any of that boom in your advertising and folks that wanted to reach those homeowners?
Oh, yes, most definitely. The savvy business owners started advertising during the pandemic when most people would think, oh, this is the worst time to start. But with everybody being at home, they were noticing more things that they needed to get done that's been on honey-do lists forever. And also just learning about more businesses within your own backyard and becoming more community driven. And I think with the pandemic, it's caused us to be more human these days. And we've noticed that, yeah, there are other people living on my block and I want to get to know them and create these relationships because we do actually need each other.
Yeah, absolutely. The silver lining of the pandemic and lots of folks, I think, really taking an interest in those small businesses in their community as well, right? Okay, I do want to go support that local restaurant. I'm going to get takeout, once a week, so to speak, just to make sure I'm spending my dollars locally. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully that sticks.
Yes, fingers crossed. But it's created deeper relationships. So it's not about buy from me in the marketplace. It's about buying from someone who cares, who supports, and who's interested in your life, your community. So that's a stronger bond, and it creates greater top of mind awareness for brands who actually participate in advertising the magazines.
Yeah, love it. So what are some of the things that you're looking forward to, here in the next quarter or two? Maybe some projects you have coming up that are of particular interest?
Well, I'm going to be working more with those mission-based organizations I mentioned earlier, helping them really get a foothold on their stakeholders or their target audiences so they can do greater work in the community. And I'm also looking forward to getting some more federal certification for my business because we have a few now, but we're pending status for some upcoming certification approvals so that I can get more into the federal and government contracting space. So those are my things for this final quarter that I'm looking forward to. I think that's a big enough leap for me right now to get those things done so I can be ready for growth and scaling in 2022.
Love it. Yeah, I recently interviewed Faye Coleman, Hera Hub member there in DC as well, who had made just an incredible business and career out of working, through some of those government contracts and then sold her business. So it was fun to interview her and talk full circle in my Women Who Exit series. So you've got a lot of great support there at Hera Hub DC for doing exactly that.
Yes, Faye is truly a gold mine.
She is. She's amazing. Wonderful. Well, if our listeners, Vatrice, want to reach out to you, get in touch with you, learn more, where's the best place for them to go?
Please visit affinitymediaconsulting.com, and they can click the contact page to send a message, and we'll get in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Vatrice. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Same here. Thanks, Felina.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.